Think the Rosa Parks story is just a sweet tale about a tired lady on a bus. Not even close. Was she really black enough for Jim Crow? Or did her tangled ancestry threaten the whole system's twisted logic? Who was pulling the strings in the NAACP backrooms? And how deep did Parks' connections to communists and radical leftists actually go? And those gold medals and Capitol statues, are they signs of progress or just America slapping a Band-Aid over its own guilty history? Keep listening for the facts mainstream history won't touch. Picture this. The most celebrated black civil rights icon in American history was actually 1/16th white with Scottish-Irish ancestry flowing through her veins. That's right, folks. Rosa Parks, the woman whose bus seat refusal supposedly epitomized the struggle against white supremacy, had more European blood than many people who lived their entire lives as white Americans. Here's where it gets deliciously ironic. Parks' great-great-grandfather was a white Scottish-Irish plantation owner who likely raped her enslaved ancestor. Yet under America's twisted one-drop rule, this woman, who could have passed for white in many contexts, was condemned to second-class citizenship because of a single drop of African blood. Mistaken for white, and her grandfather Sylvester Edwards was so light-skinned he sometimes passed as white. The ultimate betrayal? While Parks fought for equality, America's racial classification system meant that her white ancestry, potentially making her more European than African, counted for absolutely nothing. She was legally colored, despite having ancestors who built the very system oppressing her. Talk about historical irony served with a bitter twist of injustice. And let's not forget, the system that punished Parks for every drop of blackness conveniently cashed in on her legacy generation later, after it was safe. Let's drop the sanitized bedtime stories. Rosa Parks didn't just grow up in the South. She grew up in a rural village, prowled by violent hooded thugs whose idea of family fun was burning churches, shooting through windows, and lynching uppity black families like hers. Yes, the same Rosa Parks you see on postage stamps spent her childhood under siege, literally barricaded inside her Alabama home, while the Ku Klux Klan played neighborhood watch with torches and rope. Forget about Southern hospitality. In Pine Level, the honest-to-God bedtime routine was getting into bed fully dressed, shoes laced, adrenaline rushing, because you never knew if tonight your house was next. Rosa's grandfather? Not your average grandpa with Werther's Originals. He sat up all night on shotgun duty, windows boarded up, staring down the Klan through the darkness, daring them to set foot on his porch. Little Rosa, age 6, begged to keep watch with him because, for a black child, safety was spelled rifle. How did America reward this family's resilience? By pretending it never happened. By shoving the terror, the nightly forced dress rehearsals for escape, the children's fear, and the white mob's impunity right under the national rug. Rosa Parks became America's mother of civil rights, not just thanks to her courage, but because she survived night after night of what most Americans would today call domestic terror. So the next time you hear a saccharine story about quiet dignity on a Montgomery bus, remember, the real Rosa Parks was forged in hell with a bullet in the chamber and the Klan outside the window. Want the gritty truth? Here's what they won't tell you in history class. Before Rosa Parks became America's favorite civil rights poster girl, she was busy battling her own body, without any help from the system. Chronic tonsillitis, folks, not just a sore throat. Think endless agony, fever, and being stuck in bed while white doctors barely glanced at black kids unless absolutely forced. Rosa's family finally scraped together enough cash or hope for a risky operation. And what did she get? Not relief, but temporary blindness. Blind. A little black girl in Alabama, robbed of sight, left to rot in a society that never cared if she lived or died. And spare me the Hallmark recovery montage. Rosa's sick room wasn't some loving, sanitized place. It was raw neglect, pain, and survival. She clawed her way back from darkness, not because of America, but in spite of it. Remember, by the time she stood up on that bus, she'd already survived a system designed to break her, body and soul. Let's smash the polite fairy tale, shall we? Rosa Parks didn't take a break from school to help out at home. She was yanked straight out by poverty and tragedy. At 16, while white teens were picking out prom dresses, Rosa was emptying grandma's bedpans and scrubbing floors so her family didn't starve. She had to watch women she loved wither away in a system that didn't give a damn if black people lived or died, let alone learned algebra. School board inquiries about this missing star student? Please. When poor black girls disappeared, nobody batted an eye. Just one less problem in their overcrowded colored classrooms. Want a diploma, Rosa? Get in line behind grief, kitchen work, and your mother's fever. Only years later, with her future husband pushing her, did Parks drag herself back for that luxury diploma, one snatched by 7 out of every 100 black folks in Alabama. The textbooks sell you triumph. Parks lived through America's horror show. Let's torch those cutesy love stories you saw in school books and talk cold, scandalous reality. Rosa Parks didn't fall for Raymond Parks in some innocent swirl of romance. She stumbled straight into a civil rights war room. Raymond wasn't just a mild-mannered barber. He was running clandestine meetings, dodging lynch mobs, and raising money for the infamous Scottsboro Boys, while most black Alabamians were terrified to even whisper the word protest. Rosa herself admitted she thought Raymond was too white, and he proposed on date number 2, dashing into a marriage fueled by danger, not chocolates and flowers. This marriage? It was less honeymoon bliss, more hours-long strategy sessions with a loaded gun on the kitchen table. They weren't just a couple, they were the Montgomery movement's nerve center. Forget the image of a timid, tired seamstress. Parks was part of a radical underground with Raymond at the core, plotting mass action and collecting dirt on segregation's dirtiest secrets. The real love story was a partnership in rebellion, criminal in Jim Crow's eyes, and anything but safe. If you think Rosa Parks accidentally changed history, think again. This was a civil rights power couple who made revolution a family business. So you thought Rosa Parks was some political debutante who just wandered onto the front lines by accident? Guess again. She'd already spent over a decade as the NAACP's secret weapon before that famous bus ride. From 1943 on, this tired seamstress was organizing, investigating, and taking names like a pro. Want a real scandal? Here it is. Parks wasn't even the NAACP's first choice for leadership. Unapologetically sharp and too stubborn for their taste, she was buried in bureaucratic busywork, secretarial duties, translation, youth projects, while male leaders hogged the spotlight. But who was actually doing the dirty work? Parks, in the shadows, risked her neck interviewing rape victims and collecting evidence no one else dared touch, while the men held endless planning meetings. 12 years of this, cover-ups, infighting, and NAACP politics so toxic they'd make the House of Cards writers blush. So forget the legend about a naive woman pushed into history. Rosa was a seasoned insurgent, battle-hardened long before her name hit the headlines. You want civil rights intrigue? She was the movement's secret muscle, just nobody wanted to admit it. Let's rip the mask off. Was Rosa Parks a secret communist? Here's the scandal they pray you never Google. While NAACP insiders ditched radicals to appease polite society, Rosa sat right in the smoke-filled rooms with Marxists, socialists, you name it. Highlander Folk School, labeled a communist training camp, and Rosa was there, learning strategy, not etiquette. Officially, she never joined the Communist Party, but come on, she was always smack in the middle of the Red Menace, attending party meetings, collaborating with open Marxists, and defending communists when the NAACP tried to purge them. Cops and politicians loved to red bait her, hoping a communist smear would stick. Did she back down or apologize? Never. In fact, Parks moved left over time. She backed Black Power, marched with the Black Panthers, and opposed U.S. wars. So was she America's Rosa or Moscow's? Truth, she was both. A civil rights troublemaker far more radical than the bedtime storybooks admit. Time to torch the fairy tale. Rosa Parks didn't just wake up tired one December day and politely decide to make history. She was a powder keg, and America's favorite bedtime story covers up what really lit the fuse. Forget the gentle seamstress narrative. Just months before her bus protest, Parks was seething after watching teenage Emmett Till get tortured and murdered for allegedly whistling at a white woman, only to see his killers grin and go free while the whole country yawned. You think her defiance was about aching feet? Please. Parks herself admitted that when the driver barked at her, all she could see was Till's mutilated face and America's bloodthirsty hypocrisy. If you picture her quietly standing up for what's right, try picturing volcanic fury barely contained. That bus wasn't the start of her activism. It was her way of saying, no more. Her rebellion wasn't gentle. It was a deliberate act of sabotage against the system she'd watched lynch children and get away with it. Let's tear off the patriotic wrapping paper. Rosa Parks lying in the Capitol Rotunda wasn't the grand gesture of reconciliation America claims. It was a dazzling spectacle of guilt polishing and historical amnesia. Politicians, who once buried civil rights bills and sneered at activists, suddenly turned mourners-in-chief, racing for camera time beside her casket. Congress didn't break its rules and lay Parks in honor out of deep respect. They scrambled because the optics of ignoring her were political suicide. Beneath the marble, surrounded by statues of slaveholders, Parks became the establishment's trophy, safe rebel, celebrated only once she was safely silent. Eulogies were scrubbed, her radical edge dulled, all whiffs of defiance sanitized for TV. Lawmakers hailed her nonviolence. They just forgot their own votes against equality. The reality? America didn't heal. It staged a guilt-washing ritual, crowned a symbol, and went back to blocking the very justice Parks demanded. Sainthood was scripted. History's real activists need not apply. Rosa Parks got showered with the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Congressional Gold Medal, finally immortalized in a Capitol statue. Sounds impressive, right? But let's get real. The same system that once tossed her off buses now hugs itself for honoring her, erasing every uncomfortable truth about who Parks actually was. All those gleaming awards, doled out years after her prime, with gushing speeches from officials who'd never risk a single vote for real change, are less about acknowledging justice and more about dusting America's conscience. Don't be fooled. The establishment loves giving out shiny trophies to rebels after the danger is gone and the memory is declawed. Parks risked everything fighting an unjust system, and now that same system uses her as a stage prop for progress. Statues aren't justice, medals aren't reparations, and honoring Parks is easier than learning from her. Sainthood is safe. Revolution terrifies. That's how rebellion gets shrink-wrapped and sold back to you as history.